Welcome to Purpose Uprising, the podcast. I'm Jessica O'Kane, your host, and this podcast is an exploration of what it means to live on purpose. It's really about ordinary people doing extraordinary things in this life. It's the people that are truly tapped into their authenticity, who are showing up in this life as themselves, who are so tapped into their unique gifts, who are living in their purpose. These are the people that are doing extraordinary things, and these are the people that are truly making the world a better place. And it doesn't take much. Listen, I'm someone who asked myself the questions: who am I? Why am I here? What is my purpose? I asked these questions millions of times throughout my 20s and into my early 30s. And I can say with confidence, I know what my purpose is. And I know what yours is too. And you're probably overcomplicating it. Remember, you are here for a reason. And that reason, spoiler, is not to wither away in a 9-to-5 job that means absolutely nothing to you and that drains you of your precious life force. There is a way for you to make the system work for you, and that way is easier than you think. In listening to this podcast, you're going to be challenged to rise to your purpose. I hope you take that challenge. So let's get to the episode. Okay, amazing. Welcome to this episode of the Purpose Uprising podcast. So I'm really excited to have Sigute Zitikyte here today. I'm just going to start this with an introduction. I have notes on this screen because I want to make sure that I'm properly introducing the incredible woman who is joining me for this conversation today. So Sigute is a personal brand and business coach and a published author of a book that I always have on my desk, Multi-Passionate: How to Claim Your Identity and Radiate as a Multi-Passionate in a Linear World. It's $11.11 on Amazon. I love the angel number. Sigute speaks to me. And Sigute believes that being multi-passionate is your superpower. This is one of her few taglines that really stick out to me. She also writes a weekly column that inspires ambitious professionals to connect with their intuition, use their voice, and start building a career off the beaten path. A fierce advocate for professionals to become the CEO of their careers. This is another Sigute tagline that I love. You are the CEO of your career. She supports multi-passionate professionals and entrepreneurs to build portfolio careers filled with freedom, creativity, and abundance. And she's worked for the massively impressive likes of Shopify and Mindvalley. Her consulting business started out as a side hustle. And when she started showing up online in a way that felt authentic to her, talking about things outside of the tech world, and then realized the world isn't ending, and she was feeling more radiant, more confident, and more clear, she decided to quit her career in tech to turn her side hustle into the successful business that it now is. So she's helped hundreds, maybe it's thousands now, Sigute, you can correct me, but hundreds of thought leaders defect from resistance and scarcity to launch best-selling books, global podcasts, certification programs, masterminds, and the world is truly more radiant as a result of the work that this woman is doing. So I'm so excited to have you in this space, Sigute. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Jessica. And that ordinary people living extraordinary lives is really the thing that connects us. And I just love anybody who has that mindset, because to me, they are the ones living an unconventional life, a non-linear life. And sometimes these words have had maybe negative associations, or maybe we've felt negative associations. What does that mean? Does that mean I can't make it on the linear path or the conventional life? What's wrong with me? And I think that how I see it, at least, is a lot of us are stopping the charade of pretending that we want this quote unquote extraordinary life that looks one way, that everyone is chasing, that everybody wants. And we're kind of like, oh no, there's like 8 billion different extraordinary lives that we can live and how they look. And maybe if I'm just my ordinary, regular self, maybe I was made perfectly beautiful and wonderful enough to achieve my extraordinary life. So I love where this conversation is going to go.
Yeah, same. Everything that you just said, even what makes us ordinary. It's like, what makes us ordinary is that we're humans and we are put on this earth with an original essence that I have this theory. I don't know. It's more of a knowing, a belief that we're born with this original essence. We're here with a very unique skill set, a gift. And as we move through the world, we pick up all of these protective mechanisms to keep that really vulnerable, beautiful, authentic truth safe until we don't need to keep it safe anymore, i.e., when we become fully fucking grown adults, right? Like this essence was in us when we were children, and we pick up all of these protection mechanisms, and then all of a sudden, our light isn't radiating anymore. And so I truly believe that everyone is here to do something really, really special. And unfortunately, we're conditioned not to do the fucking special thing we were put here to do. And I want to just say the quote that you open this book with, because the quote is also on your website. So it's clearly one that is important to you. And I think everyone needs to hear it, which is, don't live the same year 75 times and call it a life. Like, Robin Sharma is the speaker of those words, but that's so powerful.
Yes, I saw that quote, I want to say 10, 15, 20 years ago. And it has just stuck with me as the grounding principle of my life since then. It was the thing that really gave me permission from the very beginning. And I just want everybody to hear it, to know it, to recognize if you have been reliving the same year over and over and again. And it can be in small ways of, let me try a new hobby, let me try something new. And it could be in bigger ways of, let me expand my friendships and add new people into my circle. And it could be, let me build my portfolio career. So I'm continuing to set up systems that support me to live a unique life all the time. And this is why I'm an advocate of the portfolio career, of embracing being multi-passionate, because you do need a foundation or system in order to be able to reinvent and pivot and grow and not feel like you're starting over all the time, because that is definitely an overwhelming feeling, to start over versus expand, expand, expand.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, start over versus expand. I want to get into so many things with you. Before we do this, I also want to be mindful that people listening to this might want to know what your take on multi-passionate is, because those words have spoken to me ever since I started like following you and your content, which I think is when you were launching your book. So I was following you on LinkedIn. And to me, the word multi-passionate was just like, oh, yeah, I get it, because I am it. And what you just said about permission, sometimes we do need to see something or hear something outside of ourselves, almost like a reflection of a truth, to be like, oh, yeah, that's my truth. So tell us, for the benefit of whoever tunes into this conversation, what is your take on being multi-passionate? What does it mean? Is everyone multi-passionate? How does someone know they're multi-passionate? Yeah, give us your take on that.
Yeah, what I love about the term multi-passionate is I allow it to be what somebody needs in that phase of their life. So for me, it really is, being multi-passionate is allowing my curiosity to lead my life. That's really how I would describe it for anybody who maybe wants their curiosity to lead their career, new hobbies, new ways of being. It's almost, I believe Tim Ferriss has this beautiful line where he says, diversify your identity, something along those lines of, don't be so, and I think we've done this in the career world for such a long time, where in order to climb the ladder of success, you have to let go of parts of yourself so that you almost are lighter to be able to climb that ladder to the very, very top. And what happens is a lot of people get there and they are this one singular human with one singular goal. They've maybe let go of relationships, they've maybe let go of passions, of anything else. And they're left being this one little box or label almost a stereotype you can describe them. And to me, that is the ultimate nightmare in life, is to reach the top of this ladder being a shell of yourself. And
Yeah.
so to me, multi-passionate is, how can I find maybe a different ladder? Maybe it's not a ladder. I love to describe a career as a garden. So I'm just planting seeds in my garden, and I'm letting, even seasonally, in the winter, maybe it's one type of bush that grows, and maybe in the summer, it's roses that bloom, and just allowing your career to be that. And maybe you want one type of garden for a few years, and a different one for the others. So that's what it means to me. It's like being your full self at all times, just because, whether I'm lucky or unlucky, but for me, beauty is so important. Creativity is so important. Just all of these could be my European background, but like the joie de vivre is such a big part of me. And I could have felt shame about that. And, oh, I need to cut that out. Those are such little frivolities. But these little frivolities are the things that kept me my full self and my full multi-passionate self, and being like, oh, I want to, even as a small example, when I launched my website, this was back when the norm was white website, black font, maybe a blue stripe somewhere. And that was your website. That was professional. That's how put your message out. And to me, I was like, no, I love I love the websites of bloggers and, fashion girls. And I want a website like that. However, I just want my content to be about careers, not about shoes. And just being multi-passionate gave me the permission of, why don't I blend those and see what happens? And now it's funny to see that the trend has moved to that. A lot of people are injecting that creativity and that beauty into their websites so much more. And so I just get to be a little bit ahead of the curve as a multi-passionate. And I wonder if you resonate with that as well. When you blend different things that you're like, oh, I kind of want to do it this way, it allows you to sometimes be a little bit ahead of the curve in whatever you're pursuing.
Yeah. I feel like I'm still figuring that out. I think I'm at this stage in my business and building my personal brand. I didn't sow many seeds when I was in my career building a personal brand. When I was in my career, you were way ahead of me in terms of, you were in your career and you were finding yourself at the same time. My journey was a little bit different, because in my career, I had to lose myself completely to realize, oh my God, this isn't me. And that was the catalyst for me to go and find myself and rediscover and reclaim the parts of myself that I had kind of let go of. So what really resonated with me when I first came across your message and your book, it's a short book, right? Like it's like, you could read this in an hour. You could. Don't, because you want to read a couple of pages and let it really sink in. And I read it once, like front to back, and then every once in a while I just pick up a chapter and read it. But it was like, what I needed to hear was, oh, I had been conforming, but I didn't know I was conforming. I didn't know that I was in this little box until I poked my head out of the box and saw it and was like, oh my God, I've been living in this little container for so long. And the parts of me that
Yes.
I had repressed were the parts of me where I'll never forget. This is so random and it's so weird. I read this book. It was called, what was it? I'll think of the name. It was literally about Nazi Germany. Okay. It was a very interesting nonfiction book. And it was about how the Nazi regime was using methamphetamines and really like hard drugs to create a super soldier. And part of the book was really focused on Hitler's personal doctor. And Hitler would describe himself as a dilettante. And here I am. I'm reading this ebook. Okay. I'm reading this book on my Kindle in Ghana, in West Africa, at a really transformative stage of my life. And I did that thing on Kindle where you can like touch the word dilettante. I was like, what's dilettante? And I looked up the definition, and the definition of a dilettante is someone who is a generalist and likes to be good or have a surface level understanding of many things, but not one thing. And I was like, oh my God, am I a dilettante? And in that moment, I was like, ew, Hitler was a dilettante. I don't want to be a dilettante. This is such a weird story. But that was like the initial seed where I was like, I'm seeing that as a defect. And I want to be the expert and the amazing person at one thing. But that's just not me. I'd rather die. Literally would rather die. I would get so bored. I'll think of the name of the book. It was very, very good. But I digress.
I have to read that. That sounds really inspiring.
Know. It was called Blitzed, is what it was called. Blitzed. But you can kind of see the double meaning.
There you go.
Blitzkrieg and then blitzed out of your mind. Yeah, it was really, really interesting. But that's the thing that stuck with me. Like, I don't want to be a dilettante.
The association.
And now, as I've realized that being multi-passionate is my superpower and it's in my human design, I'm a manifesting generator. I'm like, oh, it's the thing I've been resisting because the world has been telling me I need to choose one thing and I need to climb this ladder, and it is linear. And it was like your words were part of my little journey that was my permission to finally own that. So I'm going to thank you for that one because I found you at the right time. But yeah.
I love hearing that. And that's why I wrote the book. And just as an aside, like a lot of the work that I do is working with thought leaders and being part of the process of them launching their, New York Times bestselling books, and also helping them build their content and brand alongside. And what I've been able to see is them writing this manuscript, the core pieces of it, paragraphs of what they want to write. And I read this manuscript and it like blows my mind, or not even the manuscript, the outline, let's call it. And then their publisher says, okay, well, books have to be 50,000, 60,000, 80,000 words. So almost fill it, add words, add pages. And I thought, okay, this is another one of those things where books have to be a certain length. And so I wrote my book in the original format of here are the topics, here are the multiple paragraphs. And I turned it into 2 pages per topic because then it's so easy to really get in there, get the juices of what I'm saying, apply it to your life, go back the next day, read the other chapter, versus going out and then adding the fluff into the book. And I'm sure the fluff. And I'm sure you've read books where you read the intro and then you're like, I didn't even need to read the rest of the book because they just kept regurgitating the same things over and over again. And I like to think for an intellectual mind, we don't need things blasted into us over and over and over again. Sometimes we can take the crumb, we can take the initiative to think about it, ponder it, apply it to our life, and move on with our day. So even just my unconventional nature, even in how I write the book, and maybe give permission to others to write their book their way, it is definitely a big part of it. But the other thing, I have so many things to say on what you mentioned. But say all the things. But when you were saying like the dilettante and how it's associated to negativity because of Hitler, which of course that's somebody using power and influence and their multi-passionate nature in a really negative way. That's the same as saying, looking at all the movies and looking at all the rich people who are using it for all these evil things. I always think of Cruella de Vil ripping down the street in her, I guess it would be a Ferrari if it was real life, and being evil and all of these things. And we just fabulous furs. And you kind of grow up that, okay, well, money is evil. Yeah. And then for you, maybe being a dilettante is evil. Yeah. And it's almost you leveraging the power of words to redefine it or choose a different word for yourself, reframe it in a way that empowers you. Because I think one thing that we're missing, and I would, or maybe not missing, but I'd love more of, is people in powerful, influential positions doing good. And what we see is the Mother Teresa, who obviously has done amazing work, but people thinking that you have to be in rags to make a difference. And that's so much harder than the person who maybe has found success, but in evil ways. And just kind of, again, like pulling that apart and seeing how can I disassociate power from evil, money from evil, and actually use it for good, because we need that as our consciousness rises now. There's so many people who are coaches or healers, and that industry is so sometimes underpaid for a lot of folks who are afraid to sell or to get clients because they think it's evil. And so there's just a lot of like ripping apart the brain of be powerful, be influential, have a personal brand, have authority over your career, do that. And it doesn't mean you're going to become evil.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And the wild thing is the evil connotations that we have are not even conscious, right? This is the stuff that we figure out as we do the work, the mindset work, and we start to be aware of and analyze the resistance, right? And we're like, oh shit, I'm constantly stressed out about money because I have a deep seated limiting belief around it. But it takes incredible awareness and a willingness to be uncomfortable, to sit with the discomfort and to get to the root of that. Because I think a lot of people don't realize that these limiting beliefs are kind of running the show. And you were talking about reframing, right? Choosing to reframe, finding something that we might see as limiting and doing the reframe, which yes, we need the awareness to do the reframe. And I think that's like where a lot of people are kind of, they skip that step because awareness requires a comfort with discomfort. It's like it requires a willingness to sit with the
Yeah.
discomfort, to sit with the resistance that is very uncomfortable. And yeah, well, I'm going to leave my comment at that because yeah, that just resonated so deeply.
And it's kind of what you said earlier of while you were in your, let's call it fishbowl. I like to think of it as a fishbowl. While
Yeah.
you were in there, you didn't know that the water was murky. And it was
Right.
only when you looked out of it, you jumped out of it, you went, oh, there's a different fishbowl I could be in, or there's maybe an ocean I could be in. And it takes different things for people to have that realization. I'm a big fan of travel, of moving from one culture to another. I think
Yeah.
it's crazy for anybody in North America who's soaked up into that hustle culture, productivity culture, work, 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 gray buildings, gray office. I say go to Europe.
Yeah.
Just go to Europe. Be around people who are creative and artistic and they love food and they love all these different dimensions of life, and it's a slower pace and not
Yeah.
a less productive, if anything, a more joyful pace. So even just in that small example, travel to see different cultures so that you can see, oh, this is the fishbowl of the culture that I'm in. If I don't feel like I belong here, at least now I have awareness that I can
Yeah.
live according to different values, which I do that for myself as somebody born in Europe, moved here when I was 6 to Canada. I'm now balancing the Canadian culture and the Lithuanian and the European culture and
Mm-hmm.
being able to pick and choose. And this is probably the roots of my multi-passionate self, is the ability to sort of coexist in two cultures, never belonging fully to each one and coming to terms with that. And then realizing I can create my own culture
Yeah.
and my own belonging in myself. And I think that that is hard, but it's something that a lot of people can get into.
I love that so
Yeah.
much because I am living in North America and want to live in Europe. That is a dream. And that's something that I think will naturally happen over the course of my life. But I think what you said was so powerful because you could apply it in a smaller way for someone who perhaps doesn't have the luxury to go and travel the world. It could be as simple as just remove yourself from your everyday life. Just, maybe that means just going into an art store that you normally just walk by, or listening to a completely different musical genre that you've maybe shied away from. Maybe you're not a country person. Go listen to some country, but taking yourself out of your routine to get a little bit of perspective and allow those perspective shifts. I think that's so important. And I fall into this trap often as a multi-passionate because I am constantly doing new things, but sometimes I just need to get the F out of my own head to realize, oh, this is something I've been taking for granted, or, oh, I haven't really explored this part of myself. And that's so important because otherwise you're just like, again, you're living the same day every day and you're calling it a life. And that's not it. That's not the vibe, right?
Yeah. And exactly. I always say, even every year, think of doing something,
Yeah.
starting a newsletter. Maybe this year you're going to write on LinkedIn. Maybe this year you're going to start painting. Maybe this year you're going to start dance class. Like, it's the activities as well, going into places where you feel like you don't necessarily belong, but elbowing your way in and then realizing that the people there are the same that they are anywhere. And I think this is a big thing you realize when you travel is you go to some random country and you go, oh my gosh, we're still cracking the same jokes or, we're still laughing about the same things. And so just realizing that we're all the same wherever we are underneath, maybe a different language or different mannerisms. And it's the same thing with a lot of intimidation that people might feel of stepping into the online world. Like it's the same as the real world. It's just online. And there isn't some secret society where if you're not inside of it, you don't belong. And so just also building the muscle of doing new things, going to new stores, going to new gym, trying a new practice, just building that muscle of stepping into rooms that you haven't been into is the ultimate superpower for a multi-passionate to thrive because we're always going to be walking into new rooms. So just, I love what you said of just finding a way this week, do something that's a little bit out of your autopilot.
Yeah. To me, traveling, one of the biggest gifts of traveling is I'll go, like recently I spent 2 months in Spain and Portugal. And you say this at some point in your book. I wish I had the page earmarked. Your shit travels with you. And sometimes you need the complete shift in your environment to realize what you're carrying. Because when you're in the same environment, you don't even realize that that you're dragging around this ton of bricks. And when your environment is shifted and you're surrounded by beauty and slowness and inspiration and all the things, you're like, oh, wow, I've been going at a pace that is truly unsustainable. Or wow, I've been carrying this pocket of scarcity mindset. And that is, I crave travel as a mirror to like, okay, Jess, what are you bringing with you this time? And what are you now choosing to let go of? Because you can't choose to let go of it until you're aware of it, right?
Wherever you go, there you are.
Exactly. That's the quote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a good mirror to see what stories are continuing to happen, even with new people around you, new environments. But then also the beautiful side of it is you get to see things that people maybe say about you or think about you that you even took for granted. But now all these people are also starting to say it and you realize, oh, maybe that is something a superpower I took for granted, but it came up here and it came up there and it came up here and how I showed up and how you deal with things. And yeah, travel is definitely a great way. It's almost like testing out yourself in different environments and seeing how you show up and looking at the things that you love, the different patterns that are showing up that you've cultivated and you really enjoy. And then also going, okay, wait, why is this pattern happening over here and over there? I thought it was them that was the problem. Yes. Why is it happening here?
Yes, the patterns. There's a line that I wrote down from your book where you're describing multi-passionate, but I think it's going to weave something in. It's, in other words, being multi-passionate is a journey of doing things that feel random while trusting your future self will make the most of those random things. The future self, Sigute. The future self. I often think of this as like the highest self, right? Same shit. So I think I want to hear you talk about this. I want to hear your take on this because not enough people are trusting in their future self.
That is, I think, the biggest, even writing that line, it's probably one of the lines that has stood out in the book for me the most as well, is that it is a trust in your future self. It really is. It's like things will come, things will go, things will change. You're going to start a hobby and it's going to suck, or you're going to try a new business and maybe it won't work out. And you'll do all these different things. But you know that your future self is smart enough to pull something out of there to add another layer, another step to whatever, staircase you're climbing in life. And having that vision of who that future self is, I love that exercise first and foremost. Like I truly live my life for my 85-year-old self.
Fuck yes.
And who is she? She's on a vineyard. She's got, she's selling wine. She's also got, I don't know, all this creativity going on. She's also badass. She's mentoring women online. There's just so many things that she's doing. But the other thing is just how she looks, just like relaxed shoulders, and she has a smile on her face, and she's slow and graceful in her movements like a former ballerina would be. And that's the energy that I want to bring to that area of my life, which of course means you put in the work now to become that version of yourself.
Yeah.
But then exactly looking backwards to it and helping yourself see things from a bigger picture and go, is this next decision going to help me move more towards that or less towards that? And I think this is where and this happens to me regularly, right? If I'm reinventing every year, I'm sitting in that doubt or overthinking every year. I can promise everyone that. Like, just because I conquered it last year and the year before and the year before, I'm going to conquer it now again and next year and the year after and the year after. So that's great. That's even another part of it is be, like you said at the start, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's that sort of trust that the discomfort you're going through is worth it. You're going to do something with it. I think a lot of people even think about fitness or diets.
Yeah.
They sort of have a story of, well, I'm not going to, I always just give up and I'm not going to do it. So why bother? Mm-hmm. And they don't give themselves a chance but maybe today you will. And maybe tomorrow you will again. And just to rewrite the story. It's almost like we become a victim to the story versus, oh, I actually have the power to rewrite the story. And actually I'm somebody who trusts myself and I will maybe take a week off, but then I'll get back into it. And I think that has helped me a lot in anything that I'm doing is, okay, cool. I took a week off. I took a month off. I know that I will get back into it. And as a 75-year-old looking back at myself, I won't remember the week I took off. I'll just remember that I continued going and continued building. So just even noticing that the limiting stories that stop you from trusting yourself and start writing trusting stories. Yeah.
And realizing that those stories, the story of, well, this isn't going to work out, so I might as well not even start, that story is just a protective mechanism. It's like your ego is projecting the worst case scenario, which for you is going to be different than the worst case scenario is going to be for me. It could be a fear of failure. It could be a fear that if I do get really fit, all of my friends are going to resent me and I'm going to lose everything. Like the stories that we create for ourselves are fucking wild to stop ourselves from stepping into what we truly desire. And like, I find it so helpful to do those exercises where you actually get to the root of like, why am I telling myself that? And then you do like the inner child stuff and you do the regression and you're like, whoa, I did not know that fear was connected to this memory or this story. And when you have that knowing, all of a sudden you realize like, oh, okay, this story is trying to protect me from this. I'm trying to become a person who's not afraid of this. So what am I going to do about it? And I'm going to make a different set of choices. I'm going to make a different decision. Like, this is the shit that lights me on fire that I could talk about for hours.
I love that. So, yes. Yeah. And I think even just what you were saying, I think especially for women, there's the added fear just because we are so community oriented and like our friendships are deeper than men's are, right? Like women have these one-to-one deep conversations, whereas men are like, let's go to a football game together and have a group friendship group, right? And so for a man to say in the success world, which all the books have been written by men, is, just cut people off. If they're toxic, get rid of them. It's okay. You can go to the top. That advice is not landing as easily, I think, in general, for most people who don't want to do that, but especially for women who like the core wound or the whatever connection that we have to other women and the people around us, that's not feasible. Yeah. We can't just cut everyone off and be by ourselves. We're going to completely, first of all, not sustain ourselves that way, but also just feel so depleted in it. And so just also recognizing, okay, so I am going to have a fear of the tribe turning against me. How do I deal with that? And so for me, as my hack has been, okay, I'm going to get really good at networking, connecting, meeting new people, having the muscle to build powerful, deep relationships, regardless of my age. that is another thing. Like future me is going to be talking about that and probably writing a book on it because I'm so passionate about it right now. But, you know, we've kind of overcome the linear career thing, right? So we're kind of starting to realize, okay, maybe having the one career for 80 years isn't the solution. Maybe we can pivot and grow. Then we've overcome, you're going to buy your forever house. Okay, so we've overcome that one. Now people are realizing they're probably going to move. They're going to, downsize later on or buy their, vineyard in south of France. But the one area, exactly, you're welcome.
I might have the vineyard next door. I will see.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, in Provence.
Yeah, exactly.
But the one area that we are still holding on to the linear conditioning is friendships and relationships. And just think about that. We think, oh, well, I made that friend when I was 10 years old and I've been friends with them for however many decades. So they're a better friend than somebody I met 5 years ago. Or I can't make any new friends after 20 because now I've only been friends with them for 5 years. That's not, a deep friendship. And I've just been paying attention to how we do that and how we say, oh, I met this person when I was 5, as if that means that somehow you have a deeper connection to them than maybe somebody you met last year and you went through something with them and you got deep and you finally were seen and understood and heard by them. And that's kind of the next multi-passionate frontier is in friendships and in relationships and diversifying different friends for different things, upgrading, downgrading them, moving them around. And with that comes the muscle to build friendships. Because I'm sure you know this as well, is we hold on to a lot of friendships and relationships because there's no one else on the other side. And we don't think that we can start cultivating and growing relationships on the other side to then be able to sort of manage, hire, fire, move around the relationships that aren't working, or maybe we just need less of them in our life. So that's the other piece of it's not about cutting people out and going it alone. It's, okay, how can I sort of, again, become the authority of my relationships in my life and manage them?
The CEO.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. You said something I want to double click on, and now it's escaping me. I really loved that. The relationships being the new frontier. Oh, I think what really jumped out at me was we do tend to hold on to things for a little bit or a lot too long once they've served a purpose, right? Because I always think of it as like our soul doesn't wait. Our soul is connected to a much deeper universal wisdom. It's going to move with or without us. And so I like to think of it as almost like the Peter Pan's shadow, like the soul's out here. Your body is anchored. Your body and your ego is kind of anchored. It's weighed down by the things that make us feel safe. It likes to feel like there's ground beneath our feet. But the soul's already gone. And until we close that gap, we're going to kind of feel misaligned. There's something missing. And a huge part of that is holding on to relationships, jobs, material things, beliefs, stories that have already served a purpose that no longer serve. And relationships is a huge one. I've never really struggled with that part. Like, I think the relationship piece, I can meet someone and know right away, you're my person. And like, I'm going to know you for however many years, but I'm going to know you. And I feel like in your words, Sigute, it's you write about this, you talk about this. It's finding your soul people. It's attracting your soul people. And the person you knew when you were 5 might not be your soul person. And that's okay. I think that's really important.
Yes. Thinking about the decisions we make when we're younger, from circumstance, from being in the right school together, from the same town, and then realizing, oh, wait, I have this other thing that I can connect with people on, which is our soul connection and our values and how we see the world. And then that just takes things to a whole different level. And I think the same can be said for careers, right? Yeah. Again, it's circumstantial. Okay, I live in this town. Here's the job. Here's the degree I took. Here's the thing I'll do that makes sense. And then there's a part of you that goes, okay, and now I'm ready for the soul career. Mm-hmm. And I feel like we all go through that transition. Like we all live those two sort of lives, from the child who is listening to the parent to then becoming the parent who's parenting yourself. Yeah. And we all, even in, when the student becomes the master. It's just such a natural progression in life to know that you'll always be the student in some capacity, but your journey is not to stay a student forever. Your journey is to become the master.
Yeah.
And so even in your career, yes, the best thing I ever did was I spent the first decade of my career following mentors that I really, really admired. And I was like, tell me what to do. I will do it. Like, teach me all the things. But I made sure to pivot into, okay, how am I the master of this now? And instead of following necessarily a mentor, how can I step into that myself and then lead others as well? And it's that transition. And I love what you said is we hold on to things for too long. And I think there's too many people holding on to that student energy, however that looks like in different areas of their life, and not stepping into that leader or that master role. And that is where the resentment comes from. And that's also why when people leave a career, we make the association that that career was terrible, that you hated it there. And I always say, I loved every single job that I had. I loved working at Shopify, at Mindvalley. I loved everything. But I reached a point where I learned as much as I could.
Yeah.
I felt full. I felt I had created amazing impact in those careers. And I was ready for the next level. And I knew that if I had overstayed, I would just grow resentful. I would grow annoyed, repressed, controlled, stuck, which is the place where most people end up leaving anyways, or some actually just suck it up and stay for their whole lives, missing that second part. So it's, I think being multi-passionate is really the mindset to say, you are supposed to grow. Yeah. Like, this is great. This isn't a failure. This is, in tech speak, this is a feature, not a bug. This is great that you're feeling stuck because that means you're expanding.
Yeah. Yeah. That's leaning into the resistance. It's seeing the resistance for what it is. It's an invitation into the next portal of growth that is available to you. And that is such a beautiful thing. The student energy thing, that really hit the student energy. So many energies, but the energy of I'm not enough yet. I still have to learn more. It's like creating narratives to intentionally make ourselves feel smaller. It's an easy way to outsource our power, right? To outsource our responsibility as CEO of our lives and our careers. You can either see being a CEO of your career and your life as a terrifying thing, too much responsibility, or you can see it as like incredibly empowering that, oh, I am the CEO. I get to sit in contemplation and have days where I vision board my life and I pivot and I make strategic decisions. That is so empowering, but it's really like the mindset of either this is scary or this is amazing. And the fact that that's a switch that someone can turn on and off, it's a bit scary, right? But you can choose, and it's the most empowering thing.
Yeah. I think I've always had this awareness of always the flip side of any fear that I have. So I think for a lot of people, they are exactly to your point, they feel intimidated by having that authority or that leadership or that power in being the CEO of their career. I get that. And I can understand why it might feel more safe to sit in that forever and just, okay, I'm going to refuse that. I'm not going to become the CEO of my career. But I know that that is as you grow older, as you do what you're doing more, as your soul, it moves further and further away from your physical body. Every year, you are going to get more resentful, more burnt out, more drained, more depleted. And so it's almost like an x-axis where at a certain point, the energy is going to shift. And you are going to, again, your future self is going to be an angry, like, frustrated, hunched over, miserable person. And that's kind of what I see. And I go, oh my God, I would rather face the fear now of stepping into my power and still pushing for it versus being hunky dory today. And then 50 years from now, I'm, upset about the fact that I didn't do that. And so just seeing the other side of that, you can't escape the fear of playing big. You just get drained and burnt out from it.
You do it despite the fear. You see the fear as the edge, like, okay, good to know. If it wasn't scary, you wouldn't be growing, right?
Exactly.
I want to invite you to talk a bit about, I'm really curious about what has turned you into the woman you are today. Obviously, you are the CEO of your career and your life, and that is such an empowering narrative. But I keep coming back to like, Sigute worked for Mind Valley. That's so fucking cool. I didn't even know what Mind Valley was until like a year ago. And then I discovered it, and it, like, I did a couple of the courses in it, life changing. And I'm like, man, I wish that I had the self awareness to like be doing this shit in my early 20s. This is my journey. I'm not resentful toward it at
Yeah.
all, but I'm so interested to hear, like, is it part of your cultural upbringing? Were you supported at a very young age with this stuff? Is it something you were always curious about? Like, what, yeah, what external
Mm.
factors and then internal factors have led you to where you are and who you are?
Well, I love the story of me working at Mind Valley for this pure, it's such an illustration of being multi passionate, following your pivots, and trusting the universe to bring you somewhere. Because as much as I'd like to think I was like brilliant and smart and I found Mind Valley and I hunted them down, that did not happen. I was working in finance at the time, total finance girly.
I
And
forgot
I
about that part of your story.
Yes, it's,
Yeah.
short little 3 years after school, but I studied business. I went into finance, and the entrepreneurial bug was there. But I always like to say it was the obvious next step. So I stepped into real estate, right? That's a very sort of from finance. And then I started side hustling, quote unquote, in real estate.
Yeah.
And doing that, pursuing that random hobby, random idea, random side thing I was doing, I actually met some amazing people. And this is why I think building a network is amazing. Opportunities flow through people, they don't fall out of the sky. And I met somebody who was working at Mind Valley, or they were going to move there, something like that. And then randomly on his Facebook page, I saw him say, "Hey, we're hiring for this position, author liaison partnerships to work with our top thought leaders and authors to bring them on the platform." And just something spoke to me. I said, "I have no idea what Mind Valley is. I'm applying to it." Then I realized it's on the other side of the world in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And I'm going, I've never even been to Asia. What is happening? But my intuitive guide was just saying, go for it, do it. And that's how my journey started. And so I love to share this because I wasn't some brilliant person who was thinking Mind Valley is going to be this amazing company. The world is going to move super digital and we're all going to work in, the mindset space. This will give me a really great leg up. I was just a girl with a side hobby, loving houses, loving real estate, and I fell into it. So I always say just whatever the hobby is, just follow it and see the relationships that you build along the way, the people that you meet, the opportunities that flow. So that's part one. Part two, to answer your question about my upbringing, the reason when I saw that Facebook post saying, "Hey, apply to Mind Valley, get to work with these authors and thought leaders," I had already been reading the books of these people. So the Tony Robbinses, I grew up watching Oprah and all the guests that she would have on. So all of these authors that Mind Valley now has on their platforms, I would read their books. And it was such a secret, like such a thing that none of my friends did. Nobody in my town really talked about, maybe secretly as well, like me. But my mom was very into our entire library was filled with personal development, meditation, growth, all of these books, which I'm sure maybe she got from her parents, my grandparents, and like in that sense. But I was reading that, all of the books. And so I love these authors. It was my secret world that, I went out during the day and I lived my life working in finance and doing business school. And you go out drinking and having fun with friends. And then I would come home and I would read these spiritual, meditative, personal development books. And so when I saw that Facebook post come up and realized, wait a minute, there's a company, there's hundreds of people who also love this, who also do this. It was just like my soul just pulled me there and said, doesn't matter if it's on the other side of the world, doesn't matter if you're taking a pay cut to go there, go there. These are your soul people. And from then it just, it was just such like filled my cup so much. Yeah.
Yeah, the through line I get from that beautiful story is that you were in tune with, and you listen to your intuition. And intuition is everything. And you would have been what, like early 20s, mid 20s for
Yeah,
this?
I think 20, 23, 24, 25, somewhere there.
Yeah. So when a woman in her early 20s is like connecting with that, for some of us, it's a gut feeling. It depends on our authority. I wouldn't be surprised if you were like a sacral authority.
I am a sacral.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, makes sense. Makes sense. Multi-passionate.
Yeah.
Super connected to her intuition. And that, what a gift. That I had a similar experience in my early 20s where like I couldn't explain it. My gut was just like, yes, you do this thing. And it's so funny. You're practicing doing the thing when you follow it, but it's too easy. It's too easy not to listen to the gut. And in my in my late 20s, early 30s, when I was at a couple of pivotal moments in my career where my gut was saying, Jess, this is no longer for you. Go, 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 go. But I was letting the ego story play out that no, this job's really good. It's great on paper. And I wasn't listening. And hence the resentment starts coming into play, right? I also loved all of my previous jobs, but there's no question I overstayed instead of listening to my intuition in one of my opportunities. I have no resentment toward the job. The job was amazing, but it was like something is brewing within and I wasn't listening to it. So the fact that you followed your intuition, and you still are, that's the magic. That's the key. But
something that you were kind of maybe alluding to or hinted at is that, and when I was younger, I would read this through all the books. They would say, like, as you get older, we stack more, quote unquote, hashtag adulting responsibilities into your life.
Yeah.
And so I do think, okay, when I was 23 and I did that big pivot and moved to the other side of the world, how might that look different at 33 to do that, or 43 or 53? Maybe it's a little bit harder
again.
Right?
Timelines. Yes.
Right.
Continue. Yeah.
And as you stack things, as I didn't have a house to sell then. Maybe you have a house to sell. I wasn't married then. Maybe then you're married. I didn't have kids then. Maybe you have kids. And never ever using that as an excuse, but understanding that as you continue living, if you continue living a linear life, it's just going to get harder and harder and harder.
Yeah.
Because you're just going to continue stacking whatever status symbols, whatever ego things, whatever things look good where you are in the bubble that you're in. You're going to stack those, and then it's going to be harder to listen to your intuition because the logical voices are going to be a lot louder. So for me, let's say in my 20s, I was the first one out of kind of the friend group to really have my mature job in finance, right? And so, okay, they were working at, cafes or restaurants or things like that. So me going to the other side of the world wasn't this big outlandish thing because I didn't compare myself to anybody who had this perfect career and this perfect life and this perfect thing. We were kind of in that fluid motion. And so I really believe the fact that I just continued to listen to my intuition from an early age, it helped me just now, okay, I already trust it. Like, I have trust in my intuition. I've trust in myself. Even though now there is the this and the that makes it harder, I can still make it pivot a lot easier because I have that trust in myself that I know it's going to work. Yeah. And so kind of all that to share is you can always start listening to that intuition and following it, and it just gets easier. It doesn't get harder. But if you delay it, then it starts to feel a little bit harder, right? As you put all these things out. And I know for me, in even working in tech, right? There's such a culture of how you dress, how you talk, the things that you do, the status symbols. Like, every industry has those little things that when you leave and you look back and you're like, oh, why did I care so much about this? Or you can look at like for us here in Canada, especially in Ottawa, it's all about owning your house. And it's almost this running joke. If you move here to Ottawa or Canada, you're going to want to own a house. Hence, maybe that's why I went into real estate as my side hustle. But it's just, that's all that people talk about here. It's a government town, and let's talk about your house. Did you buy a house? What's your mortgage? How much are you paying? And it like sucks into you that you're like, oh my God, the only thing that matters, do I have a house? Where's my house? And it sucks you in. And then when you leave, you go, wait, I didn't even want to own a house here. And that can happen in our careers. Okay, where do you live? What's your salary? I make 200K. I could never make less than 200K. Or I have, I get to travel for work and fly first class. I can't give up first class and travel. And it's these little trappings that keep us in. I mean, it's the golden handcuffs. They're brilliant, right? They're very, very brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the truth is, you could make uncapped money when you act as the CEO of your career and you step into your full power. That was a big limiting belief I had to overcome. Like, I was making multiple six figures. I don't think I can do that on my own. I'll never forget someone I deemed a mentor who was at a director level shared with me, I never want to be a CEO. It's too much responsibility. I'd rather just like work for someone else. It's more stability. And it's funny. I absorbed that. It stayed with me. And I thought the same thing. I was like, yeah, me too. I don't really like a lot of risk. And then, of course, I followed my intuition. And here I am full-time in my coaching business, realizing I could make $1 million. I could make multiple millions of dollars growing this business. I know I will. I know I'm going to live on a vineyard in France at some point. This is a knowing. This is the timeline I'm in. Had I stayed in tech, how long would it take me to make $1 million? Much longer. Like, much longer and much more stress and much more XYZ, whatever. The point is, it took me a lot of excavating to realize I wasn't anchored in that belief. And when you realize, like, you can make $1 million however you want to, that's not for someone else to give you. You have the capacity to create that for yourself when you lean into your genius and you are your most authentic self and you allow your truth to be seen and to be heard. Anyway, that might be too much for some people to hear, but I think people need to hear it.
I think it's such a powerful thing to realize that you're holding on to a certain amount or certain salary.
Yeah.
But you're stopping yourself from having uncapped income. Just because maybe your brain can't even comprehend that you can make more than 5K a month, 10K a month.
Yeah.
Like there's that blocker. And the other piece of it too, for me being the freedom seeker, that always hit me is when you're trading your time for money, I could be in the highest director position. I could be at whatever age I'm at. I will still be working 9 to 5 days a week, if not more. And there's if I don't want to work on Mondays anymore, I have to, for the most part, quit or find another job. Versus as an entrepreneur, as a CEO of your career, you get to put in the hard work, you get to front load the effort, and then choose your schedule and how you work. And so it's that piece. It's like uncapped money, but also uncapped time in how you spend it. And that's something that always gets me. You could be the best worker for 50 years, but at 65, you're still probably working the 9 to 5 hours. There's no leverage that you have. And I think being that CEO is you get that leverage for yourself. And the other thing that I wanted to share when you were saying of that director who said she doesn't want to be the CEO because that's too much responsibility. So this happens so much, believe it or not, in the thought leadership space of I'm the supporter. I'm the second in command. I could never be the thought leader. I could never do that. I could never be the one with a vision, with a thought. I could never be the one posting my face and my words online. No. So I'm going to help other thought leaders. Story of my life, story of a lot of people, even my former peers at Mind Valley, right? So many of us are the secondary role. We support the brilliant, smart thought leaders and experts. And, we put them on this pedestal. We are the students of these masters. And like I was saying,
energy.
You got to pivot out of it and you have to force yourself to go, okay, I'm the thought leader now. I have something to say. Let me start using my voice. And that is actually that's a really big thing for those of us who have these mentors or these thought leaders that we follow, is to recognize, okay, when are you going to become the master? And you can't hide behind the story of, well, I don't want to share my voice online, or I don't want to post, or I don't want to have my own website or my own podcast, because that's, that's for other people,
Yeah.
and to dive into it. So I'm actually even curious, in your story of having your podcast, like if you had any of those fears to overcome yourself.
Oh, definitely. The thing is, I wasn't aware of them. I've been thinking about having or launching a podcast for years, for years. And it's funny because I was so much in resistance that there was a point in my life where I was working in tech at the time, and I was almost anti-podcast because everyone was listening to podcasts. It was the thing to do. I was really interested in hosting one and having meaningful conversations. And my resistance ran so deep that I was like weirdly anti podcast. And then realizing that that was like, oh, I think I'm avoiding this because there's a desire that I want to do this. It's almost like if you have a dream of publishing a book one day, not reading nonfiction, so that you're like, because if you're reading something amazing, you're like, oh, why am I not writing this? And you're angry about it and you put it away. So with my podcast, I just had to come to a moment where like I was actually having a session with my coach, and she was like, all right, Jess, what do you picture for yourself? Like, we did a higher self visualization. She's like, okay, what do you want this brand to stand for? What do you want it to look like? And I was like, I want to have meaningful conversations. I want to have a podcast. I want to write a book. I want to have a podcast. I want to host retreat. It just came out. And she was like, okay, you know how easy it is to start a podcast? I was like, making up all of these stories that it had to be a certain way, that even that I needed to be interviewing people. I don't have something valuable enough to say that I can have episodes by myself. What? I wasn't even aware until I just finally did the thing. And as we're recording this right now, Sigute, I have 3 episodes recorded. None of them are published yet because I'm like, I need to have 6 episodes done to like publish it. Instead of, I could just publish them every 2 weeks. Like, I'm still becoming aware of these blocks as I'm doing it. I'm facing the resistance as it comes up. It's such an interesting process, and I'm having fun with the experiment. We're doing it despite the resistance.
And I think that's the beauty of it. And I think
Yeah.
that's the part to celebrate is you didn't wait 50 years until there were no blocks left. You are doing it with the blocks, and you're just, moving them out of the way as you go and take the next step and doing it that way. And even I love the conversational format of your podcast. So it even shows that you're already 3 episodes in and you're realizing, wait, I love to share my story as well. And I should be, I have a microphone in front of me too. Let me share my side of the story. So I love that so much.
I want to finish off with a lightning round, but I have 2 questions before we do that. So my first question is, what does your like energetic and spiritual practice look like? Is it I know you're a multi-passionate, so I wouldn't be surprised if it changes day by day. Perhaps you have a daily ritual. I'd love to hear what practices are keeping you on purpose, in your authenticity, in your power, because we know it's energetics so much more than it is action, right? So I'd love to hear that. I'll hold on my second question because I think this is going to be, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. So you're definitely right. It pivots every quarter, every half year, however that looks like. And because I'm very aware of the fact that sometimes the intention behind the routine is what's important. And so sometimes for a lot of people, nourishing routines can turn into autopilot.
Yes.
And it's always the intention of it, right? So I'm always making sure that what I'm doing is actually fueling me. And I remember at the start of my career, when I got into real estate, I actually did have this millionaire founder, maybe the first like millionaire I was around who's doing his own thing. And he would always say, write your goals every single morning. Write them every morning. And we all had a resistance to it. No, we don't want to. And he would say, look, I'm the millionaire in this room. If I'm telling you, write your goals, write your damn goals. And that was a student moment of, okay, yep, I'm going to start writing my goals. And so I wrote my goals every single morning, pen and paper in my journal for, gosh, like 5 or 10 years, like just wrote them. I had maybe 5 goals per day, and I would just repeat them to the point where they're memorized, they're etched into my brain of who I want
They
to
were
be.
the same goals every day?
Same goals, and they would pivot
Okay.
every, like say 6 months if something tweaked or changed. And I did that for so long. And now I have almost replaced that energetically with posting on LinkedIn. Because if you, quote unquote, do personal branding in the way that I teach it and coach it, it's very much aligned to your soul. You're connecting with your soul people. And so the exercise of posting online every morning isn't going to ChatGPT and throwing out a how-to stat.
Right.
The way that I create content and the way that I work with my clients to create content is you really connect back to your purpose, your mission, who are your soul people, and then you can't help it, but every single morning, I kind of center myself. Why am I here? What am I doing? Who am I speaking to? What's the value I want to create in their life today? And then I write a post organically from it and I hit publish. And so I always add that it's not showing up on LinkedIn. That's necessarily the spiritual practice. It's the grounding and the mindset and the framing I put myself into before I post on LinkedIn. And so that is this like built in, I have a daily connection to my purpose and my mission and what I'm doing here.
Yes.
And that's, I think, the biggest thing that grounds me, that whatever I'm doing the rest of the day, I know why I'm doing it. I know the intention behind it. If it doesn't make sense, I can see that as well. And then the thing I do before that is a daily workout. So I go to the gym every single morning, and I feel the difference, even how I show up connected to my purpose and my mission and my content on LinkedIn. It's so different from having moved my body. So I like to definitely move the body, activate the mind, connect to the intuition, do all the layers of who I am are kind of in that practice. But yeah, it evolves and it pivots. And I'm not somebody who's like, green juice is the way to go. And Pilates is the way to go. I like to sprinkle it in the way that works, not in the way that's a trend.
Yeah. Or the way that anyone is expecting you to.
Yeah.
This is just a follow-up question quickly, because I love this grounding, intentional grounding every single morning, reconnecting with your purpose. What is your purpose right now in your words? What is your purpose and your mission?
My mission, it really is with multi-passionates. It's to help multi-passionates reclaim their careers, reclaim their ability to thrive in this world, which so much of that is financial, so much of that is spiritual. Yeah. I think in my own story have always felt a little chip on my shoulder, perhaps. It's interesting. I always say this. There's 2 ways to work with your intuition. There's maybe you pushed away your intuition, you didn't listen to it. And so you lived a linear life and you were the good girl and everything worked perfectly. And then you have the moment of, oh shit, I'm unhappy. And there's the other side, which is like me, where I've always been living with my intuition, which meant it's always been unconventional. And I've had this little chip on my shoulder of, I just know I'll be the quote unquote black sheep doing things my way. And then you reach a point where you go, oh, actually, I don't even need that chip on my shoulder. There's so many others like me doing this. And so just that whole journey for the multi-passionate is something that just drives me.
Amazing. Okay, last question before we go into our little lightning round. What was your aha moment from this conversation? I've had many.
Oh, I know. So many. The one thing that you actually said like 10 minutes ago was how anti-podcast you were and how you hated podcast. And it really clicked for me because it's so true. The thing that we hate, and it's creating this like anti-visceral reaction, is there's a desire and a love for it. It's like a trapped desire manifests into hate. And so even in my industry, I hear so many people, I hate influencers. I hate creators. Lame, cringe, blah, 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 blah. I would never want to do that. And to me, I go, so you want to start creating content online. Gotcha. I see you. Thanks for letting me know. And so just to even put that beautifully into words, it's anything that you think is cringe and annoying and awkward and you hate. It's like, oh, you want that. Let's get you there.
So that she did want to be a CEO.
She did. She wanted to.
I
Yeah.
love you coined this. I'm going to say this all the time, trapped desire. So good. So good. Of course, everything that we project or everything that we like are critical about, have resistance towards, stresses it, that it's all a mirror for something that has to be healed within. Trapped desire. That's so good.
Yeah.
I
Because
love
if you
it.
didn't want it, you wouldn't care. You just
Yeah,
look the other way. Oh, somebody has a purple
exactly.
couch. Okay, well, yeah, I don't want a purple couch, so I don't care.
Yeah,
Right?
indifferent. Yeah,
Yeah.
so good. Okay, this has been incredible. I'm going to end with a few lightning round questions. So, first thing that comes up, right? Just go with your gut. You can answer with one word, a sentence, whatever. Okay, ready?
Ready.
Okay, the book on your nightstand right now.
Oh, I just finished reading The Queen's Code.
Oh, good. Good to know. I'm going to write that down.
Highly recommend.
What is your go to podcast?
Modern Wisdom.
Love it. Best advice you've ever received?
Am I allowed to use the Robin Sharma quote?
Yeah. We
Don't live the
love the
same
Robin
year
Sharma.
75 times and call it a life. I
Yeah.
think a lot of the pieces have been from books and from authors back in the day that really resonated with me.
Yeah. So, a book that has changed your life that you think everyone should read?
I love oldies. I think a lot of the newer personal development books are sometimes regurgitations of old work, which is
Yeah.
fine. But I really loved Psycho-Cybernetics.
Oh, I've
Incredible
not heard
book.
of this. I'm definitely picking this up. Thank you
Read
for
it.
that. A surprising skill or hobby you have that people wouldn't expect?
Oh, this is a good one. Oh gosh, I'm stumped. What's a surprising one?
Yeah, usually it's like trying to read. You're talking about the fishbowl, right? You spend, like, you know
Yes.
yourself, and yet sometimes you just need someone to help out with this one. Maybe something someone's
Yeah.
told you you're incredible at that you just haven't fully owned.
Mm, I've been hearing a lot, just like the zest I have and like the flair I have and the like the bougie wine and the this. And I
Oh,
think
bougie
that's
wine.
something,
Yes.
right? I mean, it just seems so like natural to me, but I realize that a lot of people maybe aren't like that. And yeah, read the Queen's Code. It talks so much
Okay.
about that inner feminine power. Maybe this is my answer. I think in a different life or maybe in my future self, I will be some kind of relationship coach because like
Mm,
love, femininity, the art of polarity, like
yeah.
that is something I help my family and friends like in their relationships just to show better in them. That's something that is so core to who I am and how I even prioritize my life. And to be completely honest with you, the way I build my business and my career is so that I'm the type of partner that I want to be. Because if I'm stressed and drained and grumpy, I don't want to be that version of a partner. And
Yeah.
so that's an interesting one. It's definitely the relationship aspect
I
is
feel like you
huge.
are a relationship coach right now. You're a relationship coach for people building their relationship with themselves. And that's the
Yeah.
first relationship that really you have to nurture in order to show up for the relationships that matter in your life. So even you being like, I want to be the partner to someone outside of myself, it's because it's easier to conceptualize than being the partner we need for ourselves. I have
Mm.
goosebumps because this is something I thought I knew, and I'm just learning it at a deeper level. Like every time I go through these initiations and grow, I'm like, shit, I've got another level, so many more layers to go with this one. But you already are a relationship coach
I
and
love
in the
that.
best
Thank
way.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're
Yeah.
so right. The relationship with self and then it just manifests with others. So
Yeah. Yeah.
writing that one down.
Yeah. We love it. Let's see. Do I have one last one? I think okay. So I'll ask this one last one, and then we can wrap up. The last lightning round question is: you can have dinner with any historical or renowned person, dead or alive. Who would it be and why?
I honestly would say great great grandparents, great great grandparents. I
Yeah.
think there's, as I discover that we all have the answers within ourselves, the more I start to realize that as you speak to your parents, grandparents, great grandparents, you realize how many patterns you carry, how many stories you carry, and also how many things they have overcome or thought about already, that because you come from them, that advice will help you.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely that lineage would be amazing.
I love that. Well, thank you for this incredible conversation. I took so much away from it. I'm sure whoever tunes into this is going to have their own aha moments. We love that, right? Where we feel things in our body just resonates, it's like what we needed to hear. I feel like I'm going to listen back on this episode and probably pick up on things that you said that I'm going to be like, wait, I don't remember Sigute saying that. And I can't wait to re-listen because you really are in your power, in your magic, in your genius. It radiates in your presence, it radiates in your words, and I'm really really glad to know you, and glad to know
Mm.
that I'll have a vineyard to visit when I'm 75 as well. I'm really,
Exactly. We'll
yeah,
trade, wine secrets and vineyard secrets.
exactly, yes. Thank you, Sigute. This has been incredible.
Thank you so much, Jessica. And thank you for bringing these conversations. I know that they helped me at the start of my journey so much. So I love to continue having them and sharing
Yeah,
these aha moments, Oprah style, and
Oprah style,
ideas,
baby,
ways of
we
life,
are.
blasting the fish bowls.
That's right.